Hey everybody, welcome back to Out of the Ordinary with Jay, and I am with
Brian.
Brian. Where are you from?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, and what do you do to occupy your time, or what's your occupation?
Well, I run my own creative engineering after-school enrichment programs for kids programs, and then I do some creative, weird engineering consultations on the side.
Okay, that sounds like engineering for children sounds like a perfect backdrop for what we're going to talk about, which is today's modern world and some of the things that are going on with it.
Cool.
So, to you, what are some of the upsides and downsides of living in today's modern world?
Yeah, that we have access to all human knowledge in our pocket.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's mind-blowing.
But then on the other side of that is, as Epictetus said, we are what we give our attention to. So we spend so much time on a two-dimensional screen. Are we how two-dimensional can we get and still be us?
Right, so sort of the double-edged sword. We've got access to all of this human knowledge, but maybe our hyper consumption of it is not doing us well. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and it gets to is that at a cost of a bit of our humanity?
Probably. Yeah. We're probably becoming more computer-like.
Well, and then
as we go.
And information, like it took from the time of the Library of Alexandria for human information to double was in the 1700s or 1600s. Yeah, the start of the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And then the next time was like in the 1950s, and now we're doubling more than daily.
Yeah, it's what do you call it? Like it's almost like singularity paradigm shifting stuff when it's that fast.
Well,
like I would almost posit that our brains have not been able to keep up, and that's
absolutely.
a big source of our anxiety and problems. I think.
Yeah, because I think a lot of anxiety comes from thinking about the future, and our future is so unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we evolved very consistent environments. And things change very slowly over time.
Yeah.
And it's only been 300 years since we had the minute hand.
Wow.
And we've had that kind of change. The last generation of the boomers, as everybody gives them a hard time for it, but they lived through the most physical change humans have ever seen. They went from essentially almost a horse and buggy to moon, landing on the moon.
Yeah,
that is the amount of change they've had to deal with is amazing. Most of our change has to deal with what new technology lies on the other side of that screen.
Yeah, but even for them and for us too, I do think that there is some sort of, I love it. I think it's a net positive, don't get me wrong. But I do think there is some sort of anxiety deep within us about not being settled in the pace of change. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's like, there's not a, as opposed to back in the day, like routine, get up. Okay, we got our 4 seasons. Okay, we garden, we do, now it's like, you don't know what the next thing could be politically, technologically, just take your pick. And so,
well, especially, with AI and automation, like we're talking about, for how long are we going to have a job?
Yes.
How long are we going to be meaningful, meaningful in our unregulated capitalist system that we have right now?
Well, I'll just skip all the way down to number 9, where you got AI. So I've got AI listed on here. Can I just give you a little preface and then I'll let you take the wheel?
Please.
I've been using ChatGPT a lot lately, a lot. And one example that I use, this is just mind blowing to me, but I was working on what I would consider a pretty substantive and difficult challenge, like a legal challenge. And I have 2 attorney friends that happen to be in this same field.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked one, his idea of something, and he gave me his idea.
Yeah.
And I asked the other one, and he gave me a different idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, how am I going to decide between these two? These both sound so super good and plausible. And I decided to ask ChatGPT and just have a conversation with it about these two differing opinions. It was like I was talking to a third friend that was smarter than the other two friends.
Right.
And what kind of bonked me on the head for a moment was I was like, well, I guess I don't need friends anymore. I mean, or anything anymore. I've got this ChatGPT to talk to. It was that ridiculous. And I had something I was dealing with it with the other day too. And it gave me an answer. And I wasn't satisfied with the answer. I said, hey, I don't think that's a good enough answer because I thought this was for this type of use, and you're saying it's for this type of use. And it basically said, my bad, you're right. I got that wrong. Here, now that I totally understand what you meant, I'm sorry. Here's what it is. And it basically talked to me that way.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your thoughts? Because this is the early, we're in like inning 1, if that, and it is already mind-blowing.
There's been a few before then. Like there's been chatbots in China, for the last decade.
Okay.
And what they found is pretty quickly that like 70% of them, after a couple months use, told the chatbot, I love you.
Yeah.
And that it built that kind of rapport.
Dude, after I got that one response, I was almost like, I love you.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so I get it.
When it creates that kind of value and meaning in your life, yeah, that's pretty easy to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a freaky thing. But also in that, I could see it, and this is what you were sort of alluding to earlier in the first one, is I can see it taking out a whole swath of jobs. I mean, there's no way that this isn't going to do better than almost every single human at almost every customer service, phone, chat, email stuff. I mean, I can't see it not doing better than right now. I mean, this moment, if everybody implemented, it'd be better, I think.
Right, because I've been thinking about this for much longer than it's been around. And I could easily, when I kind of got to where I thought, AI would take us, is that we would only need one human in every occupation to oversee the AI.
Probably.
Just to oversee the AI. So one architect that oversees all the architectural drawings of the entire world.
Yeah.
One engineer to make sure that that nothing weird, was put out. One lawyer to make sure that it was still sticking to the spirit of human law. One doctor that would be a human reality check on medicine. May
I intervene just for 1 second? So I was just going to say, I agree with you. I might say a committee just because one person, A, that's a lot of power, and B, I'm not sure how each person have to be Einstein in their field. But that said, it reminded me of, I forget what it was, but they put, and it might have been ChatGPT actually, they put it up against like, I'm going to get this totally wrong, but it was basically like 26 doctors, and they were doing diagnosis and whatever. And the doctors got it right like 79% of the time, or some really above average number. The chatbot got it right like 93% of the time. And in addition to that, it caught like a slew of things that they didn't even think of as part of its process. And I'm like, it's already better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so continue.
Because there's even like Daniel Klingerman's book, Noise. Like one of the great examples in there was, if you're up for parole and you wanted to be seen by the judge after he had lunch or early in the day, because the closer, like after the human judge hadn't eaten for about 4 hours, his rate of parole denial went up substantially.
Isn't that something?
And didn't matter on what kind of case it was. So there's some really great opportunities for AI, for equity, where we should probably be replaced.
Can I give you my one biggest concern with AI?
Please.
It's this, and I didn't think about this until we got farther along over maybe the last decade. I've really sort of thought about it, but and you mentioned this earlier, the access to all human knowledge. That in itself, if it has access to all human history, philosophy, scientific endeavors and all those knowledge and all that, that's a good thing. But it also has access to all the human bullshit and all the lies and, scandalous things we say and, just fakery.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's my worry is how will it disseminate that? How is it going to understand what is going to, that's that. And the programmers are going to have to figure that one out or we're doomed. I mean, that's the big one.
Right, because even most of human history has been very brutal and not kind.
Like, I'll give you an example. If it said to, like, if it said, hey, we're going to give ChatGPT access, or whatever the AI is, full access to every scientific journal and every medical journal on the planet, I'd be like, great, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you were to change that and say, we're only going to give it access to The Onion and X or Twitter, I'd be like, oh crap.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's and even access to both gets, it just gets very dicey.
It's like
anyway.
One dirty thought in a nice clean mind. Like, how do you go back from that?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't.
The genie's out of the bottle.
Right?
Yeah.
And then just like Pandora, then all you're left with is hope.
Yeah. I mean, this could go into another topic I had, which was the internet. You can find anything. It's beautiful. Its promise was to share all human knowledge with everybody. And again, there's that Ray Kurzweil thing where he holds up his phone and, I have more knowledge here than the president did and the whole entire government did in the 1970s or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's all true. But we've also got the downsides that we just talked about, you know what I mean? Which is, every opinion gets, now gets amplified, gets a bullhorn and all those things.
Well, because it's like part of the human condition is like that gossip, travels faster than truth. And the internet is already, the speed of electrons. So truth has a much harder time. It's a little slow.
Yeah,
on that.
Fear stronger than hope, all those things.
And we have to, that's where, I have faith in the human existence that we can rise up and be better than than the sum of our parts. And we can be better than our nature. Because we can think and speculate about a world in which we would like to live and behave in a way that would help to create that world into existence. Because we choose to use, how we want to recreate the world every day.
Okay, so on that note, let's talk about social media.
Cool. Yeah.
Just give me your take on this part of it to begin with. Net positive or net negative? It's a toughie.
It is, because I quit social media in 2012.
Oh, so you're more than a decade removed.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Thanks.
Man. That's an achievement.
I hear stuff and I'm glad I'm not there.
So
in 2012 when I quit it, my self-esteem went up.
Wow. So I stopped.
I feel for you. Anyone who uses it now,
I stopped it, and I was never a power user of it anyways, but I stopped it in 2019, right before the pandemic, or right about the pandemic, and then I just used it very recently to promote this channel. And I use it to say happy birthday to everybody when Facebook tells me it's somebody's birthday. But other than that, I don't really do it. So I'm guessing you would deem it a net negative, right? By virtue of you not doing it, discontinuing its use.
It was not good for my self-esteem.
Okay,
or my mental health.
Yeah, I would tell you just my own little thoughts on it is I totally see it as a net positive in that, like, I grew up in a pretty small community, and it was pretty much like, I don't know, bowling or fishing. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't be into anything else. But like, if I was in that small town now, man, I could find all these communities and other people that I had something in common with, or that I was interested in. Maybe I'm getting my eyes opened up to new things that I wouldn't normally see in a small town. And in that way, it's helpful. On the other hand, I always say, like, if you had that one sort of village idiot that was, spouting, ridiculous things about people saying, just making up stuff that were just outlandish, and he was known as the town goofball, right? Well, now he can find 100,000 other goofballs across the country, and now they've got critical mass, and now they're a movement.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's a net negative or a net positive,
I think there's a lot of other ways that we could do the positives without it, especially when you throw economic incentives into social things. That's when it really quickly is not the incentives for humans.
Yeah.
The incentives are for corporations. And then, so if we were to take out the economic incentives of it,
sure,
it could be much more human.
Right. If it was PBS and not NBC, something like I give you that. I agree. I will say my I'm going to say today social media for me is a net negative. I see it doing more harm than good. Overall, in today's version of it,
right? Because it also has all the investigative journalism and good reporting and actual honest reporting has virtually gone away. Like 40 years ago, all of our media was owned by hundreds of thousands of entities, and today we're down to like 90% is in control by 8. And their incentives are not our incentives.
Well, and that's a perfect segue to the next thing I want to talk about. But yes, news is. Listen, I hate to say it, but we are like fear-based beings. I mean, we're highly motivated by fear. It appears to me anyways, more than anything else. Just the way that it is, we haven't quite evolved out of that yet. Which I want to get into now, is that the algorithms. You know what I mean? Like. The news is sensationalized for a reason, because that's what will make us watch it and get us screen time.
That is no longer news. If it's sensationalized, it is no longer news.
True, except for the only thing I would say is it's like if I've got 2 stories to go with, I'm Joe News Station, right? And I'm like, one is I get to say, everything went well at the elementary school today, and Mrs. Brown made her favorite cookies. Or on the other one, train went off the rails again, knocked out 3 buildings. I mean, if I am running those 2 stations simultaneously, one's clearly going to go out of business, and we're not going to see any more cookies.
Right.
And we're going to see a whole lot of train wrecks. And that's it's a weird part of the human condition. And I mean, I know these companies, Facebook, YouTube, Amazon, you have to assume that they've hired the best psychologists, the best scientists, they've got the best data. They know what sells. They've got all this old marketing history to go off of to keep us engaged and keep screen time as long as they can. And you can only see so many cute kittens. You know what I mean? Mostly what drives traffic is pain.
I'm going to turn that around.
Okay, please do.
And go, if they have all the best psychologists and game network theory people, couldn't they frame all the positive and good for human things in a much more succinct, meaningful way? So here, I'm going to get to that.
Good. No, it's a good point you're making.
So FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, wrote the second Bill of Rights, the Workers' Bill of Rights, and he did not get it implemented here. But it did get a part of the Marshall Plan, and it became established in Europe and Asia and all the places we helped rebuild after World War II. And in that essentially was guaranteed a meaningful job, guaranteed the right to do business from fear of monopolies, domestic or abroad, the ability to obtain and enjoy good health and recreation, the right to a good education, all those things. Those 8 points. And now, I don't know if we have, and the right to decent housing and affordable housing. And I don't see that we have any of those 80 years later. And I see that that the news, anything that is the news that is not promoting those things as human, for the human our existence, are red herrings, are just to get our views and distract us from our everyday life. Because if we did talk about those things on a regular, and those were the first talking points, It wouldn't solve all of our social ills.
Yeah,
but 80% of our social ills would go away.
Yeah, if I'm hearing you, what it sounds to me like is that it would require almost like a cultural shift, in that you'd be promoting good news or promoting normalcy or normal news versus this,
Right.
because
if we did
you're thinking
actually
that
promote good, normal news, well, then people would have more bandwidth for self-education, self-development, community engagement.
It seems like
and not be afraid of strangers or new things. And let's actually get engaged and work on our Dunbar numbers, which are like the ideal amounts of people that we have in our community, which we don't have. Because what they find is actually Australia just outlawed social media for anybody under 16.
Yeah.
So how could that be a social good if we're seeing the rates of suicide, alienation, depression, all these mental health issues are showing up much earlier with people that are having associated.
It seems though like I'm not trying to be negative Nelly here, but I find myself to be a pragmatist usually, and it seems like such a heavy lift though, because the cultural and political will required. Because even if you could say there's 10 social media sites and you were able to get 9 of the 10 to sort of go with this new, nicer, better agenda, the 10th one, if it's nothing but mayhem and catastrophe or whatever, it's going to get a crap load of views and still drive an agenda and the agenda. And so I don't know if you almost had to see that's where that works in Australia, because they've, hey, this is the law now. They had the political will to say 16 and under, we're not doing anymore. I don't know if I see that happening anytime soon in the United States. I mean, maybe for 16 and under, but not for adults or anything like that. And it's just as harmful there. So I'm hearing you, but I'm just wondering if it's possible.
Well, see, when the internet was first around and it was more democratized, and we actually,
well, you had, first of all, you used to have like 10 web browsers or whatever.
We are in late stage capitalism where, I've heard the argument, well, I don't want to use the second best web browser. Well, you don't even know that Google is not the best web browser because you don't really have a choice. And good luck finding, another one, because if anybody comes up with something different, they have acquired so much of the IP that makes web browsers even work, that anybody that comes up with a different one gets sued into oblivion.
Yeah, it's a political, they have to fix it politically.
And then net neutrality, before net neutrality, where it was everybody had equal bandwidth. Good news, and then there were the darker corners of the internet, but you had to choose to go there. It wasn't, the fire hose was not, your feed was not, a fire hose of negativity and fear and, division. Because all these are the same problems have always been there and have always been around, but why are we all of a sudden now? Because, there's only a few entities that are in control of our feed, and the algorithms have been tuned not for our best interest, but for advertising, which means to get to make us look at it the most, for the longest. And so, yes, our little monkey brain, wants to know, how do I not be bad? How do I not, be a problem? And so it wants to follow the fears so it can avoid it.
Do you have just your own opinion? Do you expect that this version that you've outlined, which I think would be beneficial, would happen in the United States, save for some damn near existential crisis?
Do you think,
do we get this better web, this more tightened restrictions on algorithms and a more fair situation, or does it happen over time, or is it going to take some, for lack of a better term, some terrible thing happens because somebody read something on social media and then goes and wipes out a mall or something? You know what I mean?
I think it will happen naturally if we get to a monopoly. So if we get to a state-run media there will be the subversives that will create their own another level or somewhere else.
So that's an interesting way to think about it. That could happen. That's possible.
And that is where we don't live in pendulum swings. We live in cycles.
Oh, see, I think we live in pendulum swings.
and that's what everybody wants you to think. But even there was a Russian Tsar back in the 1600s that went, nope, through human history, it's a cycle.
You're preaching Ray Dalio.
We go all the way to extreme, and then we switch, and we flip, and then we go the other way. Not,
But isn't that kind of a pendulum?
We do, no, that's a full cycle. We do pendulums back and forth in those cycles.
I see.
Until we get to those breaking points, and then major things change.
Okay, so where are we at in the cycle? Do you have any idea?
We're getting close to that breaking point because we only have like 8, and
well, so call it 10 years from now, 5 years from now. You got any idea?
No, the rate of change is not in human scale.
Oh, okay, so it's going to be a while. Maybe.
No, that it's not even our ability to think.
Okay.
In either that kind of speed or context. We don't do well with things that are not, linear curves.
Right.
Like things that are just additive. We're good about that. Things that are just incremental. Once you start to get into geometric and exponential and like where those asymptotes are and where those breaking points come, and we can approach that asymptote for a very long time, but when does that human condition push it over the edge?
I don't know that answer, but what I do know is that I spend too much time on my cell phone. And I think almost everybody I know does. And it's like a weird thing. I'm working hard at this, and I'm getting better at this, and I think I'm better than a lot of the people, a lot of my peers, because I've worked so hard at it, but still I have a long ways to go. But like if I'm watching a TV show, if there's a commercial on, I don't even think about it. My hand has already found my phone, right? Shoot, even if the thing just gets a little boring, or it's just, not holding my interest for a second, boop, I've got my phone in my hand over and over again. Some of the ways I've combated that is like if I can go in to meet somebody, I'll put a watch on only and leave my phone at home or things like that. But it is or put it in another room if I'm trying to watch something. But it's
Adam Conover has this great thing about.
Oh, I like that guy. He's funny.
He says that bookstores don't sell books. They sell the idea that you are a person who reads books.
Yeah, that is so true.
So what you do, he's like, I'm a reader. He's like, I'm a reader. So I get the book to my face, and then pretty soon, all of a sudden, my phone is in my face and no longer the book.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful that dopamine.
It's crazy, the addiction. It is purely an addiction. And like the fact that I'm like, I don't know the full neuro science behind it, but the fact that my arm is just going, you know what I mean? Whoop, and grabbing, and then it's here, and I'm like, it wasn't even a thought. It just was, like breathing is a little freaky, man. Yeah,
that's the habituation of it.
That's just wild.
That's actually the habituation of it. It's not even, it's just habit.
And to your point, it's
like you don't think about how you tie your shoes.
Right.
It is how you just go and do it. So like it's the muscle memory, it's the habituation that you go for your phone.
100%. And I think if it was, for me anyway, it's just my own opinion, if every time I was to do that automatic reach for the phone and brought it up to me, it was making me healthier versus just giving me a dopamine hit like any other drug, I'd probably be okay with it. Yeah. But because I know that's not the case, and it's just
you didn't bring up an apple. You didn't bring up an apple.
And not only is it taking my time, here's another thing too, back to the algorithms and the cell phone combined, is like, this is what I don't like too, is, we talked, is I like to feel I have some agency. I'm not going to get into the whole free will debate and all that stuff. What I'm saying is I know when I'm grabbing okay, so back to, now I got a plane here. All right, hold on one second. Okay, so back to what I was saying between the algorithms and my phone and everything is like, I remember I'd get up in, say, the morning, watch a YouTube video that I was interested in. It would show up, as part of my feeds. Maybe I was subscribed to it. By the way, please subscribe to this channel, despite what I'm about to say. But I remember it would then feed me my next one that I'd want to see, and my next one. And by the time I knew it, my day was completely occupied, and it just made me think to myself, like, who's in control here? Who's doing the steering of my life? Do you know what I mean?
It's not you.
Not even close. And that was going on for months, if not years, where I took a moment. I was like, whoa, I'm waking up in between checking my emails and where those end up steering me. And, watching one Netflix show and where that steers me, and watching one YouTube video and where that steers me, and one search and where that steers me, and going on Amazon to buy one thing and where that steers me. I'm like, I think I made maybe 5 decisions today, and I'm not even sure if I made those 5. Do you know what I mean?
You didn't make those 5, actually.
And that's pretty brutal. Like that's a damning indictment to.
And I think that's why a lot of people are getting to the
modern human condition.
We don't have free will, and I think we do. But it takes a lot of, like, in Daniel Kahneman's thinking fast and thinking slow. Like, being in a type 1 was thinking fast, and type 2 is thinking slow. And those actions that, to pick up that YouTube video or to do that feed, those are those are everyday. That's not thinking in depth about things.
Right.
And we are, reacting and not proacting. We are reacting to the situation at hand.
Right.
And then when we get to that thinking slow, when we start to be mindful about where are we going, what do I value, and how am I living my values? And then I use that to juxtapose, to be able to go stimulus, think about my values, and then react. And that's where we really actually have any agency.
Right.
And we can actually have some free will, because we can either choose the opportunities at hand, or there are some other opportunities that are not,
right,
succinctly at hand, or something completely different.
Well,
and that is where we have our free will, and that's where we have our agency, and we can not live our life as this dialogue between us and this 2-dimensional screen.
Right. And when I heard you say it, what came to my mind is, like, in terms of who's doing the steering, I feel like a case could be made that humans have always been pushed and pulled, right? Hey, the weather's really rainy outside, so don't leave your shelter. Therefore, now you've modified what you would have maybe normally done that day. Or, oh, my car broke down, and so now I've got to do X. And, there's things.
With the cave, like, all of a sudden now it's, what can you do within this cave with the resources at hand? And man, did we get really, really innovative with that. And new things came out. That's where how most technologies came out. Well, I'm going to bash this rock together, and that's a nifty new mapping. I'm going to do traditional. Kind of the development of consciousness comes from our analyzation of our tools, and so like a blunt force object is it's a single point, so it's a one-dimensional thinking. And then we hit a rock together and kind of made an edge. Now that's 2-dimensional. And then 3-dimensional thing is when we started to curve that and think about our ergonomics and how well does it fit at our hand or in other tools. And we've always done the osteodentotopocratic system of tools, which don't even leave fossil record.
I don't even know what that word was, but you have to say it again just so the audience will get it and I can get it.
It's the osteodontotopocratic. It's about bone, tooth, wood, and time.
Okay.
And topography. And those, we know we've used those. And we had to figure those out and how to use time and land. We had everything available to us.
Well, and
compared to what we have now, is like we have our 2-dimensional screen and maybe some things around us.
What you just brought up is a perfect way that I was thinking about what you're talking about, which I guess is my concern. Is you said make use of your time. That's the biggest difference between the way that it was, which is to say, okay, the weather outside is bad, so I've got to do something inside now, or my car broke down and now I moved in this direction. I'm still making the most, or I like to think I'm making the most use of my time now, because these algorithms and technology are so intense and so addictive. Like, I don't feel like I'm in control of that time, no matter, you know what I mean, or it's just way more difficult. Do you know what I mean? So they're not the same, even though we've been pushed and pulled in the past. It's just so much different now. I mean, a whole day can escape you pretty easily, despite the weather, despite how your car is functioning.
It could be perfect outside for everything else. Yeah, and then we're spending our time because this has been absolutely tuned, and the little algorithm that is set up our feed does, billions of A/B testing every second,
right,
to optimize our choice to continue to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's my brain has definitely. I'm a big fan of Ray Kurzweil, anyways, but I definitely, what he calls cell phones brain extenders, and they are that too. Because I mean, without it, I wouldn't even know what I'm doing in any given day because everything's on my calendar. Everything's being. I send myself 100 emails a day. You know what I mean? It's like,
I have a different word for it.
Go ahead.
So when we have technology implanted in us, we are cyborg. But yet I abdicate a lot of my consciousness into my technology.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you. I agree.
And that I call my tech ego. Tech ego. And that is when I, I don't remember dates. I don't remember phone numbers. I don't remember my schedule because I've abdicated that to my technology. And now that technology is now a part of my ego, but it's my technology. So it's my tech ego.
Well, if it was, to your point, I mean, if this cell phone wasn't over here and instead it was not a watch, but it was, remember Google Glass or Apple's Vision or whatever their VR, and then they move that into a contact. I mean, you're there already all the way anyway.
Yeah.
But so let me ask you this: I have this.
Then we have, should we have some stuff that attaches generators to our joints so that we move to power itself?
Yes, I need new joints.
And then, you can actually have strap-on things that that our movement of our joints would actually create power, the power of our technology. So then we are really, that's a strange step towards the Matrix because we are our own battery to power our technology.
Yeah, I mean they're working on that stuff.
Yeah, because in the Matrix we were just batteries.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I pinch myself every time I watch that movie. I don't know why, and I don't know if it's real. I have no idea. Okay, so
it gets into if we were in a perfect simulation, what's the difference?
You have to live your life anyways.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
It. Makes no difference. So let me, since we're talking about technology, what do you think about things like these big? Here's three big ones. Cloning, which they did with Dolly the sheep back in the 80s. So, I mean, we're talking 40, 50 years since they did their first cloning of a mammal fully, which is crazy. That was half of 100 years ago almost.
Yeah.
The DNA's been completely cracked, and I think, isn't it? It's all been charted now, I think. And then you've got CRISPR doing the gene editing. What do you think about that stuff?
Well, they actually just relinquished the unethical nature.
Oh, the human genome is fully cracked. That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fully labeled. And they've also just relinquished the unethical nature of designer babies. So now designer babies are ethical now.
Wow.
So that is really interesting. So that's going to put us on this track to Gattaca.
Yep.
And that's the cool thing, and that's because one of the things that separates us from other animals is that we change our environment to fit us.
Right.
And so now we have the opportunity to change ourselves to fit our culture, our technology, our environment. And I think that's just the next step.
And our offspring.
Right. And so that's just the next step in the human tool usage.
Can I ask you this question? This wasn't on here, but I was just thinking, do you think personally that they should allow human cloning? Should you be allowed, say you saved up 10 grand, should you be allowed to go clone yourself? Because here's let me give you my premise on it. I think they can do it.
Yeah.
Because if they did the sheep 40, 50 years ago, that was on probably a Commodore VIC-20 computer, compared to what we have now. I just have to think, like, I personally think it's possible, probably now, or if it's not, it's got to be really, really close, given the human genome crack, given the CRISPR situation, and that they did it 50 years ago. Like, so what do you think? Should we be able to do that? Should you be able to do that?
Well, I think the interesting thing is would I want to do that and then have it be its own entity? Am I responsible for it?
Yeah.
That's really where, like, now would that just be another, I like have a kid, but now it's a child in adult form or whatever.
Right.
And now I have to take care of it? Or would it be done for organ transplants?
Well, that's yeah. Let's start there. Let's make it easier, and let's just say you clone it without a consciousness, or somehow they can, maybe without a brain. So it's just perfect organ donor.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. See, that would be perfect organ donor, because there's a great movie about that where they actually have to raise them and keep them.
Was that The Island?
No, it was something else. It was with Ewan McGregor.
Anyway,
but so yeah, if we could do that, that would be.
You're up for that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then,
okay.
We could extend healthy life for a minimal amount, because think about like how much more cost effective that would be to have a perfect organ, donor, rather than all the pharmaceuticals.
And the efficacy of donor. I mean, it'd be perfect.
Right?
It'd be a perfect transplant.
Like, I have, that is me,
right.
and I give my consent. But now, then you get, it's how that one line there.
It's the brain issue. It's that one.
Or is it the form? Because like we're getting to the point where like abortion is, who has control? Because like really legally, if abortion is illegal, it's because the fetus has control of its.
Right. When are you determining agency? When are you determining?
Right now, if we go with abortion, legally, it's if there's a fetus, the fetus actually has the control. And that's why it can't be aborted.
Gotcha.
And so
certainly a clone would have that, at least.
So if it's completely different now, if it's separate and I have the one that controls whether or not it survives, do I have to have the responsibility of keeping it alive?
Right.
And then organ donating would not be even possible, because I would be inhibiting its ability to survive.
Well, my two comments to this would be, one, this sort of thing it's coming. It's inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
Most probably even in our lifetime, this type of thing. And so the ethics, the politics, and all the stuff around it is going to get super duper interesting. And the only other thing I would say is just personally, I'm like super pumped or positive about it, about the prospect of, what it can mean for future health, future, knowledge, and all those things. So I definitely look at it as a net positive, although I realize the seriousness and all the concerns that are some that we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, and Huxley's A Brave New World, I think, took into account a lot of other things pre that kind of thing. Where
one second, sorry, that was a close plane there, folks.
Yes.
Okay.
So Huxley's Brave New World, you talked about that every few years they would go in and have a full like endocrine redo, and it kept everybody maxed out at looking and feeling about 60.
Okay.
Because you have your infusions and it kept everything tip top in production. And so then it was really based on our telomere
length. Yeah.
Yeah, and how the fidelity of the transfer of our DNA from mother to daughter cells. And actually there's synoidal compounds that are being tested right now that will go in and tell all of our senescent cells, or cells that should have died,
get out,
and to essentially to kill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they flush out, just like a toxin. And so that's actually going into trials right now.
Yeah. It's a brave new world, my friend. We're going to have
so,
the next 5 to 10 years is going to be mind-blowing.
It is. And so, like, yeah, would you take some sinyl compounds so that you essentially kill off your bad clone of yourself that's within you? Because that's really what those senescent cells are just clones that don't die. And then if they keep reproducing, they become cancer.
I would definitely not want to be one of the people, I don't think, on one of these boards trying to decide all this stuff, because wow, we're going to need some pretty bright minds up there and some pretty.
I think I'm pretty hopeful about the next few years in those kinds of things. The ethics are going to, questions are going to go away, and it's going to be, if you can, we should.
Well, no matter what, that ultimately ends up being what happens.
Yeah.
Every impediment to progress is just that. It's always only just a speed bump. Like, it always moves forward eventually. It seems slow until you look at like the scale of human history, and then you realize it's going pretty fast.
Right. But just like, we already know that, AI and weapons of war should probably not mix.
Too late.
Right. And that is escalating at a geometric rate right now.
Do you want to play a game?
Yes. and we gave it lethal force in IRL. There's a difference between even war games. What we're playing is we're doing real autonomous stuff with lethal force. Dude. And doing it even faster.
Perfect segue. I got nuclear weapons, drones, computer viruses, spam, robocalls. Okay, but let's stick with the nuclear weapons, drones, computer viruses. Like, this seems to me, especially, and if I could even add in social media, this seems to be like a lot of the new warfare that's happening between countries.
It will be.
The computer viruses and ransomware, malware, disrupting social media with misinformation, disinformation. It's that seems to be the new way of war. Getting in and shutting down a computer system so the power's out everywhere. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
That's actually even less effective than the miss and the wrong information. And because that, it's really hard for us to unlearn those things. So that actually is a really effective weapon, because we've learned it. Now it's gone from the digital realm into the bio realm.
Yes.
And that doesn't adapt as fast.
Yeah.
And it has much longer lasting consequences.
No, if you can get a whole bunch of people to buy into something, right? Buy into some concept, that's really sticky. As opposed to, they blew up a dam. Okay, let's get some concrete and get that thing fixed. Right. Totally agree.
And same thing with nuclear weapons. Well, those are last ditch things. We're a place worldwide, like, it's mutually assured destruction all around.
Yeah, I was just reading this little article about bomb shelters have gone up. Sales have gone up in the United States by like some serious magnitude here recently, and all the experts were saying, well, it's pointless. You don't need one because it's not going to do anything. Like, you know what I mean? You're just as well off, pretty much, closing the doors of your house and lasting as long as you can there, because eventually you're going to have to come outside.
Right.
That's a wrap, so.
Yeah, unless you have your own, hydroponic or aquaponics, bunker in there.
Yeah, that's one thing.
There was, I forget, it was one of those cool sci-fi shows where they essentially went, warfare went all technological anyway. So they went, well, heck, let's just simulate it, and then when you kill a city, this amount of random people get, have to line up and be euthanized. But everybody can live out their normal lives normally, and they can do business and commerce and technology, and grow their technology, and still wage war at the same time.
Yeah. It's always weird because, obviously in the time we're living now, you've got several wars going on. There's the nuclear threat is back, for the first time since like the 80s, I guess. And right, 80s, and you've got drone warfare, computer viruses, social media misinformation, disinformation, algorithms, AI, all this stuff. it's a very, I think when we talked about anxiety earlier, I think that's a whole nother reason for anxiety is we're living through a very weird moment in history where there's a convergence of all kinds of opportunity, but mixed with all kinds of really, I would say, unprecedented threats. And I think living under that cloud every day, at least from my observation, I know it's affected me, but it seems like it's affected everybody I'm bumping into.
That is the definition of stress.
Yeah.
Is that we don't have control over the situation. That's the guy that,
Yeah.
I forget the guy's name, who was the experimenter that coined the term stress, is he actually was really bad at transferring his rats from one cage to another, and he dropped them often. And the rats that he dropped off it developed cancer because, and he called it stress because he stressed them.
Oh, wow.
And so it's that lack of control and consistency that we don't do well with. Like we evolved to live in pretty consistent times and not have too much change, and have change at the human scale, and not, at these levels that we've only had like a billion for a couple of decades, a million for less, about 100 years before that. The minute hand for 300 years. Yeah, that's like YouTube is. The last time I looked, it was like 300 hours per minute was being uploaded to YouTube alone. Like, there's no way,
and we're going to be part of that.
That's right. So, there's no way to consume or to know.
No.
Even a large percentage of what there is to understand now.
Yeah, and there seems to be an insatiable appetite for people to want to know basically everything. But you brought up something that I thought was super interesting, which is, we talk about this sort of robust stress and anxiety that's out there, and it feels different than any other time, although I'm sure other generations and stuff would argue that. I know they had their own, listen, if you were around the Great Depression, you had stress. But what seems to me when you talk...
But it didn't change on the daily.
Right. Well, here's the other thing, too, what you just brought to mind, where it says why I think technologies... Here's the critical difference that I think it fools us into thinking we're in control.
Yes.
I clicked on this, but all the while we're relinquishing control.
Yes.
And so that's sort of that's the trick. And I think like it gives us a little dopamine hit here and there to think we're in control by selecting this or clicking this or doing this. But at the same time, because in reality we're losing more control, I think it F's with us in a way that is problematic.
Go back to the message. The meaning is the message.
Yeah.
So it's also what the medium is what has control. The medium has the control. So it's the medium is the message. The medium has control. Great example. Actually, I was playing a game, Cards Against Humanity, with a group of friends the other day.
Okay.
And they have a great house rule that was rando card receipt plays, and it's a random cards that gets played into it, and it's amazing how often rando wins. So there's a whole bunch of people that are actively engaged human beings, and random cards just pulled off the deck, thrown into the step, win quite often. So who's playing the game? Are we playing the game, or is the game playing us?
that reminds me on the financial version of that. Warren Buffett bet somebody that he could have, I think this was Warren Buffett, he bet somebody that a monkey could pick better stocks than these big portfolio managers and stuff like that. And he literally did that. And the monkey would just randomly, it was either throw darts or spin a wheel or something like that. And it beat like 97% of them or something like that.
It was, there's another YouTuber actually set up for his fish tank. So and whatever side the fish was on picked that stock, and it way outperformed.
That's a psycho.
And he actually went out and pitched it to investors, and he's like, "Yeah, my fish algorithm, fish.
I love it.
It picked all these," and they're like, "What do you mean by fish? What does that stand for?" He's like, "Fish,
goldfish."
And he's like, "Well, it's a fish," and they're like, "No, we're not investing in."
Well, I think we really hit onto something there. At least for me, that was kind of a new sort of an aha moment that you brought to my attention, was the technology seems to make us think that we have some control. Like, I'll put it in my calendar. I'll do this. I'll email that. I'll do whatever. And all the while, we end up ceding control and being driven and steered further and further. And I think that's very, and I think that does create a great sense of anxiety.
Because it's a positive feedback loop, because we use the technology to do what we needed to do.
Right.
And we make it more essential every day.
Well, plus just that volume, just the sheer volume of, I'll use this, the sheer volume of airplanes. I'll just use this term loosely, but the sheer volume of productivity and movement that it allows for is just incredible. And again, I don't know if we have the human bandwidth for that either. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it's actually really all that increased human productivity, because, like, really, has it, has it made our lives better?
Yeah.
Have we been increasing our value additiveness to this world?
I think
where wages have stagnated since 1985, or is it just giving us the ability to do really dumb things faster?
Well, I mean, maybe it depends on how you want to quantify that, right? Like, from a productivity standpoint, as it relates to commerce, it probably has improved, but it probably is not at the human level, probably not translated quite well enough, for sure.
Because commerce, likes dumb things done very quickly.
Yeah.
And technology is very good at doing dumb things very quickly.
Oh, yeah. We are getting planes flying over us now. Okay. So, all right, Brian, here's my last one for you, and then we'll end this little episode here.
Cool.
Do you have any advice you would give the world, given all the things we just went over?
Yes. And it would be the 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps. Power, property, and prestige. So power, we use the 3 Ps to do anything for any reason at any time.
Power, property, prestige. Okay, let's hear it.
So power is the ability to choose, to use your property, your resources, to get prestige, to be recognized by your groups. And if you understand what you value, you will have a better understanding of how you choose to use your resources to be recognized by those around you. And if you choose to live by your values, to be able to stand for some things, you won't fall for just anything.
Yeah, I always love that saying. That's a good one.
And so, and that, knowing the 3 Ps is like how you choose to use your time, talent, initiative, or treasure to be recognized by those around you is very human. We don't need technology for it, but we do tend to make the world around us a better place, and those around us better for it.
Yeah, I like that. I think it is hard to, especially now, to control your time. It seems like boredom is at a premium now. It's like if someone's bored, I'm like, lucky. How'd you handle that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. It seems, but no, I get it anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, thanks again for your time. Appreciate it.